Hello there. In this video I'm going to compare a short little piece I've written with the Berlin Free Orchestra, which is free, obviously, because it's called the Berlin Free Orchestra, and compare the same piece of music with, well, about $700 or so of fairly premium sample library, the cinematic studio series of strings. The ensemble strings, I think for that is $400 normal price, and I've also got the solo cello in here from the CSSS Cinematic Studio Solo Strings library, which I think is $300 full price, or it might be the other way around. And I'm comparing that with, well, what do you get for free? And I've come to quite an interesting conclusion on this. Let me play what I created with the Berlin Free, and then I'll play the same track again on Cinematic Studio Strings, and let's just have a little bit of a think about what's going on here. So here we go. This is the Berlin Free. I have got a solo cello sort of playing a tune-ish, and it's all string long sustains, legatos, which is always quite tricky for a free orchestra, I think. Okay, let's compare that with Cinematic Studio Strings. Now, to me, I'm really surprised. That is like chalk and cheese. And I was completely, in the previous video when I recorded this, I was really surprised at the difference, actually. So the Berlin Free is the sort of cut down version of the Berlin Strings library, which is a very, very highly regarded and excellent string library. Recorded in the Teldex stage. It has a really, really lovely sound to it. It's a premium product, but this is obviously the free and the cut down version of it. So what are we hearing that's not making this work compared with, well, the Cinematic Studio, which is a full version? I don't have the full version of the Berlin, because this sounds like a piece of music, and this sounds like something that's been created on a synthesizer. It sounds terrible. Just to say that I've literally just copy and pasted all of the information down here. I haven't re-recorded this. I could get it better if I re-recorded it, I think, even more. The main differences then, I think there's a tonal difference, first of all. The actual tone. This sounds very thin and reedy to me. It's just warmer, it's fuller, it sounds more like a string band. It's just light years better in tone to my ears, but I am used to Cinematic Studio Strings. It's my go-to string library, and I love that sound. So first of all, the actual tonality of it, I think, is significantly different, and that might be a personal taste thing. However, just listen to the difference in dynamic, and this is really noticeable. The Cinematic Studio Strings, you get a real sense of phrasing. There's a sort of crescendos and diminuendos in volume and in intensity in a way that the Berlin just does not, because the free version clearly hasn't got the velocity layers and things baked into it, the built into it, the detail built into it. and that is a massive difference in terms of making it sound more musical and convincing. This is quite flat. And if you listen to the same phrase again, there's a real rise and fall to it. Just even by how much quietly it just sort of slips in, you know, that sort of really soft velocity layer is beautiful. And then let's have a listen to, well, let's listen to the first violins on the Berlin for a minute. I'm just thinking here about legato. Now, very few, if any, free libraries will have legato strings in there because it's a complicated and hefty thing to process. Getting that really, really smooth transition, it requires a lot of samples and a lot of information. So here we've got just ordinary sustains on the free violins. Which actually on its own sounds quite nice. It's fine, I don't have an issue with that. Let's listen to it on CSS. So much smoother because you've got the legato transitions going on. We may be able to hear it really well in the viola because that's moving quite quickly. Let's just listen to the Berlin Free viola. That even though the notes are relatively joined up and are, you know, sort of almost overlapping probably in places by the look of it, if we listen to that on CSS, which has got the legato transitions, like light and day. However, having said that, for a free orchestra, the Berlin does have a free solo cello and a free solo violin, that does include in sign play here sustains plus legato. So in theory, should be much more legato and smoother. This is the free solo cello with legato, as far as I understand it. I'm not getting much of a legato feel on that, I have to say, if you compare it with the CSS solo cello, which obviously has legato. Just the subtlety of phrasing and the transition from one note to another is chalk and cheese to my ears. So those are the big differences. I mean, the overall tonality, I think, definitely the dynamic range, and certainly the legato is just such a massive difference. Now, that's not to say that the Berlin Free Orchestra is not a great. It's free, for heaven's sake. Is not a great thing to have. I think we're getting into the area where actually you have to write to the samples, and I think probably what I didn't do when I started writing with the Berlin here was write to the samples. I think I just wrote what I wanted to write and hoped it would sound all right. Or maybe I wrote what I wanted to write in the way that I write for Cinematic Studio Strings, because I'm so used to writing for Cinematic Studio Strings, it being my go-to string library. And what one needs to do, particularly if you're working with a fairly cut down set of samples like the Berlin here, is to write to its strengths, and maybe I'm not actually doing that. I think possibly not actually doing that. I was probably writing to Cinematic Studio's strengths, which is it does beautiful legato and beautiful phrasing. The legato is great. This would be better possibly for more sustained string writing, just sort of little gestures and things, rather than trying to make it sound melodic, which it's not great at doing. However, Having said that, I mean, the conclusion has to be, it has to be that the Cinematic Studio Strings at $700 is light years ahead of what we're hearing with the Berlin Free. And I accept that part of my compositional skill is emphasizing that, or our compositional non-skill at the moment is emphasizing that difference. But I think there is a huge gap between the two. But the Berlin, it's a great thing. The Berlin Free Orchestra is fantastic. As a gateway into the full orchestral Berlin series, which is highly regarded and absolutely excellent. So you get a sort of taste for it for free, and very few sample library producers actually allow you to have a sort of free sample or try it before you buy it, if that makes sense. Okay, let's listen to the two again. Let's listen to Berlin and Cinematic Studio Strings to finish. And onto Cinematic Studio Strings, same thing. There we go. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got any comments on this, or you've used any other free orchestras that you think are better than the Berlin in strings, particularly in string sustains, please let me know. I'd be really interested to hear. Look forward to seeing you on another video soon. Thanks then. Bye bye.